And what is it that we need to be aware of as we move swiftly into the space that we call moments in current affairs? One of the other important things, of course, is to ensure that as we celebrate and commemorate all of these things that are themed, we are talking about your Fraud Awareness Week. We are talking about Disability Month. We are talking about everything that has to do with our nation becoming a better place and a better environment. We want to ensure that you engage with us. If you have inputs regarding any of these things, you come and give them to us, and we'll also ensure that you stamp your voice on all that is there for us to discuss, because at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to do this without us interacting on it and making sure that everything is on board. That being said, it's 21 minutes after 9 a.m. Let's quickly get into our stories. The death trap illegally converted Toyota panel vans used by the taxi industry will be scrapped following numerous complaints that they are illegal, unsafe, and contribute to accidents on the road. In 2019, the public protector reported that the department must ensure that no Toyota panel van has been converted into a minibus taxi that can carry passengers and operate on the country's roads. Asked why this was embarked upon almost 3 years ago, the public protector's 2019 report, the Department of Transport a spokesperson, Luapeshea Khoza, said the department started scrapping the vehicles in 2019. A total of 436 vehicles underwent the process of retrofitment. 1,917 vehicles continued to operate illegally and chose not to wake up the effort of the retro environment, continued to operate illegally and chose not to take up the offer of the retrofitment. To date, only 592 vehicles have been received for scrapping. Most of the operators, 1,325, have not complied. These vehicles will be impounded. The Department of the Specialized Investigating Unit was investigating the illegal conversion of the Toyota panel vans. The illegal reference to these vehicles conversions means that there is no record to find the companies or persons responsible for the conversions. In 2005, Toyota panel vans were illegally converted into minibus taxis, a conversion which did not comply with safety standards for vehicle carrying passengers. The scrapping of the panel vans follows numerous complaints that they were illegal, unsafe, and contributed to road accidents. The leader of Poland's ruling Law and Justice PiS party, Jarosław Kaczynski, has criticized the madness of 12-year-old girls declaring themselves lesbians. He says, "We do not want, ladies and gentlemen, a country in which 12-year-old girls declare themselves lesbians, although unfortunately these things are already spreading in Poland." Kaczynski said during an event which supporters held Saturday in Wadowice and picked up by the Polish press. "This is madness," he said. "A boy 2 meters tall and 120 kilos in weight with a beard says he is a Zosia, a female name. Then the teacher has to call him that or be retaliated. He has ionized." Kaczynski has appealed to prevent this in Poland because it destroys the family, destroys common sense. It cannot be that because parts of the West has fallen into the state that we have to do it as well. The PiS leader, therefore de facto leader of Poland, stressed that Christianity is the only widely known ethical system in Poland. The alternative is nihilism, barbarism, and various forms of savagery, he warned. The United States Embassy in South Africa has twice raised the alarm recently about terrorism in the country. On October 26th, it issued a security alert for possible terror attacks in Sandton, the financial center of Johannesburg. Days later, it blacklisted 4 individuals and 8 companies as terror financier for the Islamic State, ISIS. This followed media reports, most notably by The Economist, showing that ISIS was using South Africa to add to its war chest. There is a long story of concerns about the country's deficiencies in dealing with terrorism, financing activities within its borders. More than 15 years ago, American terrorism expert John Solomon warned that lawlessness and government corruption in the country facilitated terrorist financing. I have been researching terrorist financing within South Africa for many years. In my book, Jihad, A South African Perspective, I unpack the state of terrorist financing in the country using open sources. The latest U.S. action comes as South Africa is rushing to avert grey listing, being placed on the list of countries subjected to increased monitoring by Financial Action Task Force. The Intergovernmental Task Force has identified deficiencies in the country's policies and efforts to combat money laundering and terrorism financing. The issue will also surface in February 2023 when South Africa is due for yet another review by the Financial Action Task Force. The body evaluates steps by the government to prevent the financing of terrorism and money laundering. The country has either complied or only partially complied with 20 of the body's recommendations. Grey listing is an attempt by international community to prevent illicit funds being directed towards terrorism task force. This should hardly come as a surprise to those following the growing footprint of terror groups in South Africa. Hot off the heels of being re-elected back into power in Ekurhuleni, DA's Tanya Campbell faces a new challenge as its partner Action SA pulls out of the minority coalition. It has been seen in a letter in which a party national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, informs coalition partners how Action SA is unhappy with how the DA-led government is running the metro. Action SA also resolved that none of its councillors will take up positions in the new mayoral executive. This week, Campbell made a comeback as mayor, beating the ANC's Jongi Zizwe Hlabati, just weeks after a successful motion of no confidence booted her out of office. Some of the Ekurhuleni residents suggest that there be a regression in the provision of services in the cities since Campbell's ascension to power. There is seemingly confirmed in a letter that Beaumont penned to DA, IFP, FF Plus, and ACDP. In the letter, Beaumont raises concerns over the failure to attend to priorities as set out by the coalition and the interference from national leaders in politics. Meanwhile, the ANC says it's not lost and that all is not lost and that soon it will make a bid with the EFF for a complete takeover of Ekurhuleni. This will likely deliver the first mayor for the Red Berets in one of Gauteng's metros. A 38-year-old magistrate who was shot and killed in Mbizana in the Eastern Cape on Saturday. The occupants of a bakkie allegedly opened fire on the victim's vehicle after faking an overtaking maneuver. The victim, who's believed to be a magistrate in Mount Aleph, and her family were driving towards Nomlatu locality after dropping her mother at home. When the vehicle neared the Faith Mission Church, a white Ford Ranger double cab popped up and pretended to overtake them. Unidentified occupants started shooting at the family's vehicle. As a result of the shooting, a woman believed to be a Mount Aleph magistrate allegedly succumbed to gunshot injuries sustained in her upper body, whilst her husband suffered serious gunshot wounds in his lower and upper body. The husband, who was behind the wheel, immediately drove to a nearby hospital. One of the family's children, a 13-year-old boy, was also injured in the shooting. A 10-year-old child was unharmed. The motive for the attack on the couple is not known yet. However, the police have registered a case of murder and 3 cases of attempted murder for the investigation. No arrest has been made at this stage. Investigations continue. Major General Thandiswa Kupiso, the acting Eastern Cape Police Commissioner, initiated a 72-hour action plan to mobilize the resources necessary to hunt down the suspects involved in the magistrate's killing. Members of the public with information that could lead to the arrest of the suspects are encouraged to dial the Crime Stop hotline. So where we stand right now, we are at 29 minutes after 9 a.m. as we continue with moments in current affairs. 3 suspects were arrested for swearing at and punching the Johannesburg Metro police officers in Elands Park earlier yesterday, which was Sunday. JMPD spokesperson Xolani Fihla confirmed the incident in a statement. 3 male suspects were arrested for assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm by Johannesburg Metro Police Department officers, together with the South End Security Services in Elands Park. On Sunday morning, whilst driving on their way using a private vehicle, two JMPD officers stopped at a red light in Heidelberg Road and Van Wyk Low Road in Elands Park next to a white Volkswagen Amarok bakkie. The male driver and two passengers from the bakkie started insulting them in a derogatory manner, yelling racial slurs. The officers ignored them, and when the light turned green, both vehicles moved. As the vehicles were moving, the passengers from the bakkie threw empty alcohol bottles at the officers. Now, he added that the officers stopped and moved towards the bakkie to find what the problem was. When the officers approached the vehicle, the drivers then attacked them, punching one of the officers in the face. The JMPD management condemns the savage attack towards their officers and wishes them a speedy recovery. The suspects were detained. Whilst Johannesburg's 12,000-kilometer road network is in a state of collapse, this head of the city's roads agency insists that staff call him doctor on the strength of an honorary doctorate, which can be bought. The Johannesburg Road Agency, JRA, has hired a CEO who claims a Harvard master's degree that doesn't exist and demands his staff call him Dr. Tsepo Mahanuke on the strength of his honorary doctorate you can buy from a small donation. Now, the city has an average of 45,000 potholes at any one time, even after the private sector's pothole patrol fixed more than 50,000 in the past 18 months. The number of potholes is calculated by resident reports and by the JRA visual inspections. They are dangerous and cause accidents, especially in the rain. The pothole patrol has calculated 650 million rands in pothole damages to cars since it started counting. Senior staff at the JRA have said Mahanuke insists on being called doctor in his resume, calls himself Honorable Dr. Tsepo Mahanuke. If memorandums served to him are not addressed to this, he sends them back, saying his academic qualifications are not being respected by staff. A source has since told him to call him either doctor or professor. Yeah, okay. As we've heard, a very sad story. An 8-year-old boy has been mauled to death by a pit bull in his home in Vista Park near Bloemfontein. It's understood that the dog escaped the yard, jumped over the fence into a neighbor's property on Saturday. The police, Mahlomola Kareli, says the dog attacked the child who was playing alone, mauling him severely on his neck and chest. This is the latest killing of a child by the breed. In September, a 10-year-old was mauled to death by the family's two pit bulls at his home in the Eastern Cape. In politics, despite not publicly showing any interest in serving the ANC's top six, Joel Netchinenze is being backed by the Veterans League to become the party's next national chairperson. Senior ANC member Joel Netchinenze has been keeping a low profile at the time of when most of his comrades are working on getting endorsements from branches that are visibly on a campaign trail. Despite this, Netchinenze has received support from the ANC's Veterans League to become the next chairperson of the National, a position currently held by Gwede Mantashe. A seasoned politician who at one stage was considered to be the next in line for the party's top job, Netchinenze is a former political strategist for the former president Thabo Mbeki. He served as head of government communication and information systems from 1998 to 2006. The endorsement by the league is Netchinenze's first. He is the executive director of Mapungubo Institute and the ANC member of the National Executive Committee. The Veterans League also wants Cyril Ramaphosa to win a second term, despite Nsimang calling for him to step down because of the Phala scandal. Still in politics, the draft financial report delivered by ANC Treasurer Paul Mashatile to the NEC at the weekend indicates the dire strait the governing party's finances. A report on the state of the ANC's finances revealing that party is R500 million in debt was handed to the National Executive Committee on Saturday, the 12th of November, at its gathering at the Nasrec Expo Center in Soweto. ANC Treasurer General Paul Mashatile said the party would be looking at leveraging its investments to pay off its debts. some in London and Zambia, which is 5 billion rand worth of assets. Mashatile also mentioned the possibility of reducing staff and encouraging some employees to withdraw their packages. A bone of contention is salaries paid to the NEC members based at Luthuli House on a full-time basis. An NEC member said that members were paid the equivalent of a deputy minister, bloating the party's salary bill. Also, still in politics, President spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said the President Cyril Ramaphosa will gladly step aside if he is charged with any crime. This is in relation to the Phala Phala farm theft. Former spy boss Arthur Fraser alleges that millions of dollars were stolen from Ramaphosa's farm in 2020, and that was the president covered up with the burglary. Magwenya was speaking during a presidential briefing in Pretoria. He was giving an update on the president's public engagements. Finally, and further afield in our beautiful continent, the Chief of Staff of the Ethiopian Armed Forces and head of Tigray forces signed an agreement in Nairobi, Kenya that said that the calls for disengagement from all forms of military activity, both parties are centered to protect civilians and facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid in war-torn northern region of Tigray. The African Union-led talks in Nairobi followed the cessation of hostilities agreement signed by the Ethiopia and Tigray leaders in South Africa last week. To this end, we would like to affirm our full commitment to the people of Ethiopia, to this panel, and to the world. We have suffered a lot of misery over the last 2 years and still continue to suffer. The commitment we are making today is with the hope that our expectations that our people's suffering will come to an end soon. General Tadesi Werede and the commander-in-chief of the Tigray forces doubled down on this. The commanders who'd been meeting since November signed the agreement in November 12th. The agreement stated that the disarmament will continue done concurrently with the withdrawal of the foreign and non-Ethiopian military forces. The Tigray conflict began in November 2020. The brutal fighting spilled into Amhara and Afar regions, and Tigrayan forces tried to break the military blockade of their region. It reignited in August after 6 months of that lull, and phone and internet connections to Tigray are still down. The foreign journalists and human rights researchers remain barred, complicating efforts to verify reports on ongoing violence.
This is KNR, radio according to you.